Welcome everyone to the Future Work Scotland. We're delighted to be running a second session for you this month. That's really exciting for us. Just the usual sort of formalities. We have a very simple code of conduct. We just ask you all to be respectful to one another. That's simply it. And everyone to have a great experience. We keep it that simple. And we will do some Q&A type stuff at the end after Erin's done the session, and the usual community shout outs will give you an idea of some of the things that are coming up. It's quite an exciting summer here in Scotland. We'll explain more about that later. And I'm thrilled this evening to welcome Erin back, actually, to Future Work Scotland. Erin's been here a few times. She almost needs no introduction. She's a great friend of the community, and Dawn and I really enjoyed spending time with her in person last year when she was over in Scotland, and we had a lovely dinner together. It was really good to see her in person. Tonight, Erin, who you'll know is a very experienced organisational, agile, coactive coach, has been doing this stuff for a long time and done a number of other great sessions with us, as I say, is bringing along a special guest. So we've also got Betsy Block joining us this evening. Betsy's giving you all a wave. And Betsy's going to be, co-facilitating this session with Erin this evening. We don't know Betsy as well, but we're thrilled to have her here. So welcome, Betsy. And Betsy was telling us just before you all came on, she did have a background in software, and she started that pre-agile, which a number of us did. And she also, her claim to fame is that she was one of the world's first advanced team coaches. She could really tell us a little bit more about that. I've probably not quite explained that well enough, but I'm sure she'll do so shortly. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Erin and Betsy so they can tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be doing today, because we're going to be learning all about coaching supervision. Okay. Erin, over to you.
Well, Sath and Dawn, thank you. And Future of Work Scotland, it's really lovely to be back. This is kind of it's one of my favorite meetups, and it's one that I often use to either demo new work or to warm up a new talk that I'm thinking about, or frankly, in the past, I've used it to help clarify my own thinking. So this is a community to which I have strong affinity and deep appreciation. Right. But tonight, because it is evening over in Scotland, and I have to be very aware of that because it is not evening here in the US, we want to be talking about coaching supervision. Okay. And this is something that some of you might have been seeing pop up more and more on LinkedIn. You might be wondering what it is. You might be wondering how it's going to be of service to you, either as a systems coach, an agile coach, and really what that work is. All right. So I asked Betsy Block, who is also a coach, but based out of Oakland, California, to join me on this because we wanted to offer a really deep experience for everyone who attends. All right. So fair warning, y'all. We will have some slides up front that are going to explain what coaching supervision is, but a big portion of what we are going to do here today is demonstrating coaching supervision and letting you all experience it. Okay. So Betsy, have I missed anything before I get to the fun part of where I show the slides?
No, no, you keep going. I'm along.
Okay. Betsy's like, throw you under the bus.
I'm all excited. I'm ready to dive in.
Okay. Hey, Sheila.
Hi.
All right. All right. Hold on. Let me get my screen adjusted here so that I can. There we go. All right. So agile coaching supervision. Adding, this is adding this to the coach's toolbox. All right. And you're going to notice here that we're starting to separate super and vision when it comes to what we're talking about. All right. But learning outcomes, what we want for you all by the end of today's session. Number one, to learn what coaching supervision is, as well as its purpose. Okay. Also to understand how coaching supervision can help coaches, in other words, can help all of us to expand our range and our capabilities as coaches. And number three, to either observe or more ideally participate in a demonstration of coaching supervision itself. Okay, so you're going to notice I want to be really clear up front about what this session is, so you all have a really good idea of what's going to be happening in here. All right. So the fun part of the show. I'm going to introduce Betsy first. All right. So we actually were lucky enough to meet in person a few months ago here in Austin, and I brought breakfast tacos over. But I've known Betsy for a few years now, primarily through organization, relationship, and system coaching work. I know her from that side of the fence. All right. And I've been hugely impressed through the years of watching Betsy and how she serves systems, but then also does the work in those systems. And that's why I wanted her to come forward and help me on this talk here, because this is something that we all need more of in our life, is how to do this work at a higher level. And doing this work with Betsy, not only is my coaching elevated, my supervision skills are elevated as well. And I become a much better practitioner of the work and how I implement it in my own life. All right. So the fun thing about Betsy is she really does triathlons, like the mini ones, but sometimes longer ones I'm even afraid of. And Betsy, I have to be really clear. I don't ever want to do a triathlon. I will hand you water or Gatorade, but I'm not going to swim, bike, run. All right. But she also does have kind of that panoply of initials around either systems coaching. So as a certified ORSC coach, also a coactive coach. She is one of the first people to have that new ACTC from the ICF, that advanced certified team coach credential from the International Coaching Federation. And she and I have also done some work together around coaching for social justice and how to bring that work in, or that awareness into our own work. And she does have her own consulting coaching practice there in Oakland, California. So Betsy gets up a lot of very early mornings to make cohort times and the like. Betsy, did I miss anything?
No, I mean, I could add more fun stuff, but I'm terrified now. I get to introduce you, and I'm never going to say enough kind words. But just my other fun coaching credential is that I'm a USA Triathlon Level 1 certified coach for youth and juniors, basically because I have a kid who wants to get into it. So I became a coach there too, just for fun. So Erin, I get to introduce you now. So as Erin mentioned, we met a few years ago in an audition-like process, and I got to watch Erin's coaching work in action and really fell in love with. Is that too yeah, that's daring to say. Fell in love with her vulnerability and her courage and her ability to just let loose in a space and bring everything in. And when you meet somebody who's willing to be that vulnerable in a space for the sake of learning and for the sake of bringing up an organization, you grab onto that person and say, yeah, I need more of that. And as we've trained together and really become fans and watched each other evolve as supervisors in this space, it's been really amazing to see how Erin forwards this work, not just in the Agile community, but outside of the Agile community. As Sath mentioned, my prior career was actually in telecommunications software development. And so when Erin talks about how this work is evolving in the Agile world, I have a super soft spot for it, even though the majority of my work is in government and nonprofit and geo type stuff. So I'm not saying nearly as many nice things about you, Erin, but
that's totally fine. That pretty much sums it up anyway. I do want to mention Agile coaching circles here for just 1 second. This is something that we started a few years ago, and you're going to notice Carrie Sudi is on this call as well. And this was something that was the brainchild of the pandemic, but this is a place for any and all of us as Agile coaches to come and practice our work. So you're going to see these, there's 5 different sessions held around the world. You'll see them over on Meetup. You'll see us post about them on LinkedIn. But if you're ever curious and want that chance to practice, to get feedback, to really help to bring and elevate your skills as a coach there, you're free to join us. Like I said, they're free and virtual, and we're one of the better things, I think, to come out of the pandemic. All right. Yeah, let's get started. Let's do the actual fun part of this talk where we learn something, but also bring something else forward and the like. Okay, so supervision, super what? Does anyone have an idea of what coaching supervision is? And would they be willing to share that out loud? And this is the chance for you all to come off mute in a cacophony of sound and chorus and chime in.
Is it when somebody looks at how you coach, somebody with the right level of education and understanding and experience looks at how you're coaching?
Looks at how you're coaching. Okay, we've got this. We're going to bring this into the space. What else might supervision be? What might you think it could be?
Go ahead, Frederic.
If we look just at the Latin etymology, it would mean oversight, like word for word.
Okay, oversight. Anyone else?
Maybe like a co-partner, like a partnering. So maybe not so much as oversight, although I like that, but maybe also a partnering with the coach on things that they're working on.
Okay. And by the way, I would like to special shout out to Carrie's dog, Finn, that just walked by in the background.
Adrian's got his hand up as well.
Adrian.
My experience of it has been a kind of coaches getting together to help and coach each other, share the problems, and get different perspectives on the challenges they're hitting. So coaching the coaches, as it were.
Yeah. So Betsy, I'm hearing different perspectives, kind of how of coaching. There's oversight. What are you hearing?
A lot of discussion about, somebody with more coming into the space, which I find that's fascinating.
Yeah. So what's coming to mind for me right now is yes, and so it's yes, it's all of those things. All right. But it's also a place for us as coaches to bring our work to help to peel it apart, to really expand our own range and our capabilities of doing this work. I have found that by even just doing the supervision training, I have become a much stronger, more balanced coach and able to do this work. I don't want to say at a higher level, but in a way that is of greater service to those systems. Betsy, do you want to chime in on there, or am I missing?
I do. I think I like that Frederic brought in the Latin roots of over and sight. What I find really interesting about that, and kind of my own connection to supervision, is that it wasn't that I came to this work because somebody else was looking over me. It was my ability to step back and look in. And I came to supervision because I had a very troubling coaching experience. And it was something that I couldn't make sense of. And it was the ability for me to see over for myself what happened in that's how I came in to discover supervision and what came into coaching. And I think this might be into kind of where you're heading with some of the yes and. Where does that vision live? Where does that call to hire better come from?
So as we think about it, there's a lot of Agile coaches, as one might suspect, on this call. And the vast majority of Agile coaches that I have ever met, we're all trying to work at higher levels, be more expansive in our work, but do this work to the very best of our ability and keep raising that as we keep moving forward. And I found that supervision is a way to serve that and to keep that lifting the practice up. Okay. So
side note, as you bend into this, I think that the EMCC, the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, is more and more defining what the role of supervision is. And I think a lot of coaches are going to say, oh, there's one more hoop I have to jump through, or there's one more thing I have to do. And I hope that, like, as we unfold what this is for you and as you experience it today, it'll feel more like, oh, wow, the richness that this is going to bring to my practice.
Yeah. And that was, I think, really important, y'all, that Betsy brought. It's not a hoop to jump through. It's not a box to check. This is one of the things that adds depth, adds perspective, adds space around the work that we do, right? It's a place to really dig into that work. So this is, and fun fact, everyone, you're going to see about 4 different diagrams here over the next 3 slides. And I will email all of these diagrams to Sath and to Dawn. So, and they'll forward the email on to you all. So you're welcome to take these diagrams, peel them apart, look at them, see what serves, what does not. So before anyone asks the question of, hey, could we get those slides? I will do you one better and just give you the diagrams, because we really don't even have that many slides. Okay. But let's peel in here and looking at what coaching, what mentor coaching, and what coaching supervision are. Betsy, I'm going to let you start here.
Yeah. And I think one of the ways I think about the difference in these 3 is, what's the relationship of the person, what's the relationship of the 2 or many people in the entity. So coaching, we think of as a partnership, right? When we all go through coach training, we learn that it's the coach, the coachee, and then the relationship and the power of that relationship is where things really come to life. In mentor coaching, it heavily relies on the knowledge of the mentor, and it's an assessment and it's telling. And so there's a power there for the mentor. In supervision, it's really about the supervisee or the person coming into that relationship and their expertise. And sometimes in coaching, it's like this, depending on how your style of coaching. But in supervision, the supervisor holds it so much more lightly and is giving space to the supervisee. And just the taps and the movement is so much lighter. And one of the things, and Erin and I were reflecting on this earlier today, is that in coaching, there's a strong emphasis towards action and accountability. That doesn't exist in the supervision space in quite the same way. It's about discovery and whatever form that takes. And we're going to talk a little more in a second about the different themes that show up in supervision and mentoring, and to some degree also in coaching, but so much of it is where you are held in that space, where the supervisor is, where the mentor is, where the coach is, but where the person who's receiving that experience is as well. And Erin's going to put some more.
Erin's going to put some more words around this.
You're
While
going to
we're watching, as you know, we really begin to define what coaching supervision is in this space. And so you're seeing us try on definitions and words and how this lands. And so we're also really interested in feedback. But one of the things that comes forward for me when I think about coaching supervision is that supervision is coaching, but done from a very reflective stance. Okay, so you're going to notice a lot of similarities between supervision and coaching in the framing of a conversation. You know, there's contracting up front, and there are these big, open, transformative questions. You try to keep them clean. But instead of, you know, we're coaching, there is that aspect of forward momentum that may or may not be there in supervision. It's really depending on what the person who's brought their issue to supervision, what's useful for them. All right. And if you ask someone who's been both coached and supervised, all right, what the difference is, I've seen people look and they're like, they get this really deep and they're like, it is different. I don't know that I can put my finger on it always per se, but it is different. I'm in a different space when I do that work, or I have that work done with me. All right.
And I've heard Charmaine Roche say, supervision is what she always wished coaching was. That wouldn't it be amazing if it was always like this? But I think that there's something about people who come to coaching supervision often are coaches themselves, not always, because it can be done for team leaders as well. Mm-hmm. And there's something about having that coaching framework and knowing where you're landing in that allows you to access that depth. And I think that's another difference between coaching and supervision. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a quick pause here. Are there any questions that we can ask/answer before we go on to the next fun slide? And we will also leave space at the end of this talk today. If bigger questions come up when you see what supervision is.
I have a question.
Yeah.
and maybe something that is coming up, but it is going to come in the next slides. But how is it done? Because when I think of supervision, I immediately think of bringing some recording that can be looked at by another coach, over which I get feedback.
Right. And we will talk about that, Tanya, throughout. And that's part of the problem of what the definition is. I think it was Adrian, you brought forth the word oversight, or was that Frederick? Yeah. Someone brought the word oversight. All right. And so many of us who have gone through different credentialing or certifications, we have had to bring recordings of our work, and we meet with a supervisor. All right. When we do supervision, as we're going to demonstrate it here today, you're not going to bring a recording, and we're not going to tell you what you did correctly or incorrectly, anything like that. Okay, Tanya? It's mostly you bring the work that you want there and begin to peel it apart just a bit. So there's no chastise or telling you where you fell short of a mark or what you need to do better next time. That's not
mentoring is never chastising.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I want to add to that is, like, just really bluntly speaking, is that some coaching organizations had nomenclature, so way of calling things that was out of alignment with these definitions that are coming out of the EMCC about what's supervision and what's coaching. And the International Coach Federation is really, in the last few years, and in particular with the evolution of the advanced certification and team coaching, and then also the credentialing body for training organizations, aligning all of those organizations on wording. So CRR Global, for example, has to completely overhaul their certification program because the way they refer to supervision and mentoring is out of alignment with all of this. So sometimes it's not that you're confused by it, it's that, this is a semantic problem. And so we're hoping that today we're going to kind of share this definition that really gets its lifeblood from how the EMCC is defining what supervision is and what mentoring is. So, and the experience of it is always helpful. Hi, Jim.
And
Hey.
was that helpful? That land? Okay, good. Jim, how about you? How can we help?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at the definition in the top, and the last part of the definition says being a coach or a leader, if I'm thinking about it from a leader's perspective, could I swap the word leader up in the first part of the definition? So, for example,
Of a leader and their work?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Because that's one thing that we've been kind of starting to take a look at, Jim, is it's not just coaches who want to bring this forward. Leaders, directors, managers, executives, we all need a space in which to take our work and to have someone hold that space for us. Okay. And be there. All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
So that's why you're seeing that come up in that definition there. Okay. All right. So everyone, I'm going to go into this next slide, maybe if I can get it to advance. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to speak to this slide because frankly, this is my slide. All right. This is what I call the Chaucer wheel. And the reason I call it my Chaucer wheel is because of the quote by Chaucer himself. When he was writing about a poem called The Parliament of Owls, he wrote this: "The life so short, the craft so long to learn." All right. I know many of you in here, and many of us, we've been on, coaching practitioner journeys for years at this point, always adding in skills and expertise and readings and practice and trying and cohorts and the like. Really, the craft is so long to learn and will continue for years yet here. But it was in thinking about this and really thinking about the craft of Agile coaching that I've been messing around a bit with what started as the original Agile Coach competency framework. It drew in aspects of the Agile Coach growth wheel, but then also some work from Dandy people. All right. And those are all referenced in the lower left-hand corner of this. But you're also seeing me mix in some new thinking and some new ways of really standing in this work. All right. So let's start at the very center of this. As an Agile coach, what do we need at the middle? Well, we're going to need self-mastery. Right. And this is coming from the growth wheel that Bob Galen started. And that's around ethics, integrity, values, and self-management. We need all of that in our own core, that internal aspect before we can begin to go outward and the like. Okay. Going to that black ring that immediately surrounds that self-mastery piece, you're looking at curiosity, growth mindset, reflective practice, and learning. Okay. These internal practices are what make it possible for us to begin to do the external work. All right. Now, because this is a static diagram, I am not at all saying that you can only use curiosity when stepping into mentorship, or you only get reflective practice when facilitation or stepping into Agile Lean practitioner. It's just simply because I cannot show this rotating in 3D. All right. Now, the other thing I want to call out here is that reflective practice, this is another way to think about supervision. Okay, that deeply reflective space that stands for you to consider your work, right? Notice that that's there. That's the internal work so that you can begin to look outward. All right. So the wedges that you see here, you're going to see a heavy influence then from the Agile Coach Competency Framework. All right. In fact, much of it is, what we have always seen over there. All right. But you're also, how do we start talking about some of the different stances that we're asked to take? All right. And I'm messing around with expert, advisor, and visionary. And by the way, everyone, I'm still playing with this wheel. All right. It is not complete by any sense. But I want to think about the words like attunement. To how are we attuned in a system? What are we listening for? What's emerging and the like, and what's coming up there? All right. And then the external practices that really help us to hone our craft. Mentor coaching, cohorts, assessments, that lived experience that we do as we practice our work and move towards improving it, getting feedback from other people and the like. These are external acts that we can take with us as we really hone that craft of Agile coaching. Okay. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to take a few questions if anyone has some. And by the way, everybody, this will, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be sending out all of these diagrams. This is one on which I very much would like feedback from people as I mess with this and really tinker and the like. So if you have ideas or suggestions, you're like, Erin, this is just not clear, I really would love to hear it. Okay. But questions about what's coming up now, about where we might see supervision, about what do we see here?
Tanya's asked, just dropped in the chat, Tanya's asking what is meant by cohorts. Cohorts.
So Betsy and I right now are in a cohort, a learning group where we are pursuing EMCC certification for coaching supervision. Okay, so some of us have gone through IC Agile courses, year-long courses where we earn an ICE in Agile coaching. Those of us who have done ORSC work or CTI, it's the group of people with whom you go through that learning journey. And Tanya's like, yep. She's like, oh yeah, I know this. I'm in a cohort. Yeah. Other questions? How many people are surprised to see Chaucer referenced in Agile coaching? That's okay. Everybody, I used to, if I had had my druthers way back when, I would have had a PhD in medieval literature, but I do not. So now I just put Chaucer in reference. Okay.
Sorry, how confused.
I'm sorry, Jun Long?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I just wondering, can you explain something more clearly about the content expertise and process expertise? Okay, I have to switch my head directions.
Okay, yeah, as you twist your head around.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So if you remember from the Agile Coach Competency Framework, you would see content expertise on the left and process on the right. Okay,
yes.
You're seeing that modeled here.
Yeah.
But then you're also seeing domain. All right.
On the bottom. Yeah.
At the top and the bottom. All right.
Yeah,
but you want to have that strong domain experience to be able to hold that framing there. And so this is really just keeping that idea coming from the old Agile Coach Competency Framework and how does it expand going forward, right? Because we want to have both process as well as content expertise in our skills there in order to practice them with the teams and the systems with which we serve. Did that help?
Is on the left side, all of these are content expertise. Mm-hmm. And on the right side, all of these are process expertise. Oh,
I would
they're
say,
mixed. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
so I would say content, you're specifically going to be focusing on both teaching and mentoring. Okay.
Yeah.
So before I were ever to teach any practices, I want to be really certain that I'm tops in that content. You know, if I'm mentoring or mentor coaching another individual, I want to make certain that I have the expertise in that content before I go do this. So I would not mentor coach a surgeon. All right. I am not a surgeon. I've never studied or practiced. I have no business offering mentor coaching to a surgeon as that individual tries to improve their surgical skills. Okay. Does that make sense, Junlong?
Yeah.
And
Thank
on
you.
the other side, the process side, all right, the process of that work, you know, around the facilitation, the one-on-one coaching, that systems coaching side there, that's really where that's framing that up there. Does that help?
Yeah, so on the top and on the bottom, this still belongs to the domain size.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Glad to help. All right. Anyone else before we move forward? All right. Oh,
Well, darn it. There we
okay.
go.
Now it's working correctly. Okay.
All right. One more slide stands between all of us and
practice.
really feeling into what this is about. So one of the things I'll say is, like, I think mentor coaching comes up more often because we're all really familiar with it. And I may be being a little free and loose with these definitions, but mentor coaching can often feel like what we might call horizontal development. It's kind of flat. Like, we want to, it can be very rich, but it's helping you in a competency at the level of ACC, PCC, Agile Coach competencies. How are you measuring up to the marks, and how do I listen to this thing and hear it? And one of the things that enriches your practice is when you can develop vertically. And there's a whole lot of stuff on vertical development, and I'm not going to be the best speaker on exactly what vertical development is, but it's the idea that you're beginning to integrate different streams of knowledge, integrate different experiences, begin to get to a level of being more systemic, more holistic about how you view all of the information for you. So a lot of us are trained in a whole lot of different methodologies. Often when you're getting mentor coached, you're getting mentor coached to one of those. When you're working in supervision, you're bringing in like I'm Dare to Lead trained, and I have coactive and organizational relation systems and DISC model. And how do I integrate all of those things and become more holistic about how they show up, so I don't feel like I'm dealing from a deck of cards? I feel like they're woven together. And so I think one thing to kind of hold over all of this about supervision is, how is this all coming together for me? And there are 3 key lanes to your evolution as a coach in the, kind of piecing together, like, where does mentoring fit? Where does supervision fit? All of these things. There's the ethical or the normative, right? Ethical is a huge boundary. Am I doing things in alignment with the ethics of the body that I have been certified by? So International Coach Federation, EMCC, they both have guiding ethics. How am I doing this ethically, right? For team coaches, a lot of times it's like, are you holding team as client? Are you not crossing that boundary? Are you holding confidentiality? Normative, that ethics lives here. Formative is around skills and competencies. And yes, that does show up in supervision, albeit differently. But how is your effectiveness? Maybe it's less about, did you do this thing that you were supposed to do, but more about, am I using the tools to their most effective place? And how do I have that conversation? Not did I do it right or wrong? But something very unique that happens in coaching supervision is restoration. So I mentioned at the beginning that I came to supervision because I was healing from a very challenging experience with a client. And I needed the space to heal from within, to process that experience, to talk it through, to have a beautiful space to really refuel and restore. And one of the key reasons that you're seeing the International Coach Federation and the EMCC really push supervision is because of this restoration component. facilitating in front of a group, leading a team, and coaching a team is a lot of emotional labor. And there has to be a place where we acknowledge that and where we know how to skillfully work through that. And that's something that's unique to supervision. So how do you celebrate, honor, grieve, grow in a restorative way that refuels you? It's a lot of space. And I'm going to have Erin click ahead a little bit to kind of blow this out. It's not that these lines are solid, right? They can be they really bend on each other. And this is this vertical piece, because everything kind of becomes very holistic and you're trying to pull it inward. But there can be a place where you're restoring, but also dealing with some ethical normative issues, right? Like, what are my blind spots? And particularly for people who work in, I talk a lot about being a white person who coaches small nonprofit grassroots organizations that are predominantly led by people who don't look like me and didn't grow up like me. And I might have blind spots. And some of that's a growth journey for me. And some of that's ethical about holding. And so there's blind spots in between those two spaces. Some of the things been between ethical and the normative and formative space about the capacity piece, which are challenging client situations. What happens when you observe sexism happening in the space where you're coaching? There are competencies about what you're supposed to do, but there's ethics about what you see. And how do you have the complex conversation about navigating that? And then there's a space between what's restorative and what's capacity building, which is just living into the choices that you make, your growth as a coach. Not just did you do, not just how did you do, but how is it feeding your soul around you, and how is your soul healing from the way in which you approach the work? And that's the space between the restorative and formative. So hopefully as you're hearing this, you're kind of seeing it may be that the words are metaphorically kind of floating off the page, because this is very semantic at this stage of things to describe it this way. But this is a good lead into experiencing it. But I want to pause and say, first of all, Erin, what do you want to layer in?
Yeah. The one thing that I would want to land here with everyone is that if you were to sum this up in one word for kind of each area or wedge, if you're thinking about formative, this is really around competencies as a coach. You're thinking about normative, this is around boundaries. What are your boundaries as a coach? And the restorative aspect is around space. Okay, adding space to this so that you can really dive deep, have that space in which to really look at the work that you're bringing forward. Okay. And one of the things I will be doing in the future is getting some more graphics made that really help to indicate, competency, boundaries, and space to really help kind of wrap a bow a bit here on this work. Okay. But that does bring us to the portion where we want to move into experience, this and the like. But before we do that, I just want to open the door quickly if there's any question that we can answer right now before we go to experiencing coaching supervision. Okay. Betsy, I'm going to take the silence is that people are ready to go into a fun practice portion of the show.
The dizzying array of words.
Yeah. Adrian, it took everything in me to not comment on your lovely dog that you were holding on your lap there for a little while. I was like, well done. Well done. Okay.
Did very well.
So everyone, we're hoping to have the space here to do 2 demos. One of what we call fishbowl is where what we'd really like is for one of you to have a coaching work that you want to bring forward into supervision. We'll take probably about 15-20 minutes there with that individual. But then secondly, also a space to bring what we call action learning to demonstrate that skill there. So it's really helping you see and experience 2 different types of coaching supervision. Okay, so we'll hold that, we'll be ending in about 45 minutes, but give us about 20 minutes per style, for lack of a better term, to help bring this forward. But this would also mean that we really are hoping one of you wants to bring your coaching work forward, and we're going to throw Betsy. Betsy's going to go into fishbowl with you. So we are also willing, right now we do know that the recording button is on. And if people would feel more comfortable if we were to pause the recording for a bit, just so that we would have this space here, we're more than happy to do that too. And Frederick, I love that you brought your child too. Yeah.
Salut.
Yeah. Salut.
Ça va, mon petit? Oui, ça va. Okay. I'm just making an assumption. That's terrible, but Frédéric, tu crois?
Yes,
Yeah.
and she just came and say, hey, I found the Statue of Liberty. She's named Marianne because Marianne is the symbol of France, and I'm both American and French. So
Oh, very
we
nice.
mix a bit.
Aw.
Sorry about that.
No, all good. But
One
yes.
thing I do want to say about record, not record, and the bravery for coming forward is that often in supervision, you don't need to share many details.
Right.
It's very easy to keep client and kind of the details of things.
Mhm.
I am profoundly comfortable. I joke a lot that I could supervise somebody who spoke a different native language in their language with me speaking English, and it'd be really powerful.
Right.
So you don't need to share many details.
Yeah. So come on, everybody. You'll love it. It's great.
Lenny has been supervised by me and can tell you it's only slightly painful. I think I just broke confidentiality just after saying how confidential. Sorry,
I'll forgive you. I have no problem with that.
Sorry about that. Just caught myself.
Yeah.
Can you
would
give a
anyone
bit more context about the kind of thing you'd like to share? Because I'm not quite sure what you're after.
A great topic to bring forward is it can be a relationship with a client that is closed but is kind of gnawing at you and you're not sure why. It can be a space where you're just frustrated at where things are going or unsure of where things are going. Or it can be a relationship with a client that's been difficult, preferably a team client. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but ideally a team client. It can be a team you're managing as well.
Right.
And
recently I brought forward as an example a system with which I am working and have been frustrated between aspects of the team willing to enter coaching, but also having a lot of Sturm und Drang around it. Okay. So Paula, I'm sensing nodding that things look clear to you, but I'm also wondering if Tanya is like she's getting ready to raise her hand.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
But I was waiting for somebody else to volunteer, and I thought if nobody
remember,
does.
we have two kinds of supervision that will be demoed here today.
Well, I do have a team and a leader of that team that I could, bring forward.
Look at everybody encouraging you, Tanya.
Thank you.
so what I'd like to ask everybody to do, thank you, Tanya. What I'd like to ask everybody to do is to turn your cameras off. If you're everybody except for me and Tanya, and then go into your view and hide non-video participants. So that way, and then what you probably want to do is pin Tanya, or see us side by side either way. But I'm going to pin Tanya so I only see you. Hi.
And just before you guys go any further, don't forget that the recording button is still on. So if you want to change that, now's your chance.
I'll trust, I'll give enough details to keep confidentiality.
Okay.
And for anybody listening to this recording, just be bound by whatever bounds of confidentiality this falls under that. So if you're listening to this and you hear this, know that whatever you learned stays with this recording. So we're probably going to have about 15-ish minutes together. And so I want to start just by doing a little mini contract.
Yes.
Is there anything just structurally you want me to hold for you?
No, just I'm jumping here. So I trust you. If Erin trusts you, I trust you. And
Well, thank you for that. All right. So what I'll say is, I'll just name that I'm gonna check in. You'll see me kind of, this will be my little symbol if I want to jump in and kind of micro contract with you in the moment.
yes,
That'll
yes,
be a little gesture. So it'll be like, hey,
yes,
I'm noticing something and I just want to check in, make sure that we're on
yes,
track. So I'll
yes,
always be contracting, always be designing with you. Okay.
yes.
All right. So in a broad brushstroke, what's the situation that I can help supervise around today?
I have been assigned to a team that is in a perpetual state of firefighting
Okay.
to do process improvement. And when I get the buy-in from the level underneath the director, I get the director putting in the brakes and saying, yes, but not now.
Okay.
Then I go via another approach, with this is a team that has specialists, managers, and a director. Then I go, I contract with the director, and the director says yes, 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 yes. Then I go and do the work, and the breaks come in. So I'm constantly in this go, stop, go, stop.
Notice in your body where you carry that the most.
In my chest.
And what do you notice about that?
Frustration. I sometimes feel like, I need to become an external coach. I need to, I hate to beg to do my work. I just, I like, I am committed to the people, especially the people at the lowest levels. And I'm a bit, frustrated also because I see that the director comes from a good place. It's not a mean place. He is in his head protecting his team.
Yeah.
From whatever this way of working, because my outer role is called way of working coach. Whatever this way of working coach is doing, yes, but not now.
Okay. Pause for just a sec. And I want you to give yourself permission to lift up above. Lift up above. Feel the air. And notice we've talked about the different levels of the people involved here and your relationship to them. And the word hurt comes to mind. But if you could think about where it hurts the most.
Yes. Can you give me a second? My rabbits are making a lot of noise, so I need to open the door so they go out.
Yes. I think she just said rabbits.
Apologies for that.
Did you just say rabbits?
Rabbits. I have 2 rabbits in my house, and when they want to come out, they ram the door.
Okay.
So it's like,
rather
okay.
than think of that as an interruption, what's that offering to you? Like right now in this situation, the rabbits are trying to run out the door. What does that mean?
It's distracting when something wants to come out. It's like noise, and it's difficult to pay attention to something else. And it's like, okay, fine, go out.
All right.
Thank you. Apologies for that. I should have let them out before.
No, I'll design with you. No apologies in this space. Everything. So.
But yeah, coming back, the frustration. I care for the team. And they have opened up to me with their pain. I have used that to contract. And yet I get a yes, but not now.
Yes, but not now.
And I feel like my rabbits, except that I cannot go on and ram the door.
Yeah. Where's that energy coming from? Because I feel this.
It's from a desire to do my job. To I get a lot of energy. I coach other teams that do open the doors to me, and I get so much energy, and I love it. And it's normally the teams that are not in such a bad place, the ones that are a bit what we call more mature teams, that I just fly with them, and it's amazing. And this team is in so much pain. Yeah, it's a systematic pain. Also, to add to the point, there are people falling on burnout. I think the director that I'm referring, that I'm talking about, he's about to go on burnout.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do. I feel very. This team makes me feel very incompetent.
What are you noticing when you say that out loud?
I notice a lot of noise in my head saying, well, if you would have more experience, if you would have more acronyms behind your name, if you would have gone this path 10 years ago, so more experience, yeah, you would know how to deal with firefighting teams.
What are you noticing as you say that out loud?
Yeah, a bit sadness and anger. And yeah, it's like at this moment I cannot do anything about that. It's not their fault. It's not my fault. Here we are. I have been assigned to this team. And what do I do? Where am I failing? That's the question.
Where am I failing?
Where am I failing? What's the question I'm not asking? What's the connection I'm not making? What's the intervention I'm not having? What is it that I am doing that is not moving the needle for changing this firefighting mindset into a let's create a space for process improvement mind space.
I'm gonna design for a second, unzip a little. In the supervision space, we think about the different series of relationships, right? The relationship with our client, the relationship with the client sponsor, the relationship between you and me, but also relationship to self. And I'm wondering, as you hear that, which relationship isn't important to focus on right now?
I would like to explore the relationship with the director.
Okay. If you were a fly on the wall looking at your relationship with this director, what do you notice?
I notice and I know that I need to talk to him. We need to have more conversations. But whenever I start talking to him, he's always busy. He doesn't have time for me, other priorities. And sometimes I notice things that I want to be a bit, and I have gotten this feedback that I need to be less nice to him. But I feel I need to gain his trust. He needs to trust me. And then to gain his trust, I go into the people pleaser mode. And I am not effective. But if I every time I'm with him, I feel that if I push him any further, it's not going to help our relationship.
I'm noticing between you and me a tightening. And I'm wondering if that's parallel to what you feel when you talk to the director.
I don't feel tightening with you. I feel tightening more with myself as I imagine having him in front of me.
And
And I come again to that same wall. I don't know what to do. It's a wall that I find when he pushes me and he says, yes, but not now. He puts me, I find a wall. When I want to talk to him and really hold him accountable and really tell him what I see. And I think, okay, but what if I don't want him, I don't want him to feel that I'm there to criticize him, because that's not my job.
I'm gonna play a second with you, if that's okay. Can I
Yes.
play a second? I want to give you permission to just kind of go into your head a second and close your eyes, soft spot on the floor, whatever's comfortable. And I want you to think about, how is it you want this director to be in relationship with you? And how you want to be in relationship with this director.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah. And just hold for a moment. Just be in that space for a moment. And notice what shifts in you, the physical sensation of what shifts in you.
Yep.
And begin to name that. What is that shift?
Trust. Permission to experiment and to fail from both sides. Transparency, brutal transparency, brutal but kind transparency. I mean, brutal against, the subject matter that we're talking about, but in terms of a relationship, kindness, but just, transparency. Very important, a need not to show off from both sides. And by this, I am describing the relationship to another director that I have. And she's very robust. I can, I work with her really easily, and with her team is the team that, that I fly, that I feel worthy in that film, in that team. I feel great. So I'm now, yeah.
I'm gonna land us as we have
Yeah.
a couple of minutes to go.
Yes.
What's here now?
What's here now? Kind of a discovery about how I could shape my relationship to be more as I have it with the other female. I'm going to say it's a female director, with the other director. But also what's here right now is a fear that I don't have the permission. And even though maybe verbally, something like a permission might be given, in practice, it's not there.
What's changed for you since we started talking today?
A kind of a remembering that I focus too much on the one team where things don't work, and I very easily forget things with the other team where things do work, because I don't work very hard there.
That's beautiful. Oh,
Thank you, Betsy.
thank you for trusting me. Should we invite everybody back in?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Well done, everybody. Well done. And if you're willing, come on back on camera. Okay. So that was one type of coaching supervision. We call that fishbowl, where you see it's really deep, one-on-one and the like. Okay. What would be useful for people attending here? Would it be a little bit of debrief here would be good? Do you want some time to do some Q&A, or do you want to move to, we're also hoping to demo more, well, more of a team aspect too. What would be useful here? More demo. Jim's very clear over in the chat. Okay. Any other votes, or is it going back to demo? Okay. Jim, apparently you have a very popular opinion. So everyone, in the interest of time, because we do want to land this by the bottom of the hour. Tanya, I'm wondering if we could ask you to stay in the middle, because people are likely more familiar now with your topic and the like already. All right, so you're going to stay in the middle, and you are going to be, again, the supervisee, the person being supervised. All right. Betsy and I are going to go over into the supervisor role here, and we'll share that position. All right. And everyone else on the call, you are going to be in this too. So we're going to need active participation from more people. All right. So what's going to happen, we've got Tanya there in the middle on the right, but we're also going to ask questions of the system and ask you to reflect on how Tanya's experience, where you're seeing that in your own work and the like. And we're going to kind of do a little bit of a rounds on this and then land this and leave some time at the end for Q&A.
And I want to be really, really structured around how you should frame your comments, because one of the things I don't want Tanya to experience is suddenly having 20 new supervisors. Okay. And so the way that you want to begin your comments is something around what showing up for me in my own coaching is. Right. What showing up for me in my own reflection is. And if you, and I'll put that in the chat to just kind of let this be about you and your experience, what you heard and what's relevant for you, and questions that came up for you in your own practice. And then when we do the debrief after that, it may be that there's some, then we'll come back to Tanya and say, was there additional learning for you here? But it's going to come out of everybody else's exploration for the topic.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll put that in the chat. What showed up for me in my own coaching is.
Yeah. All right. So Tanya, I'm just going to ask you, if you were to give like a very tiny description, a tweet that encompasses your topic, what would that be?
How to gain trust from a senior, from senior leadership.
Okay. Getting trust from senior leadership. All right. So I'm going to call on Carrie Sudi right here, because I see her on screen. All right. And so Carrie, I'm going to ask you here, as you reflect on that, how are you seeing Tanya's topic show up in your work?
So what showed up for me in my own coaching is, and I hope I'm doing this right, but Tanya, I guess I can reflect back on what Tanya said about how we sometimes focus on the harder spaces rather than seeing the areas where maybe good things are happening. And so what showed up for me in my own coaching is an appreciation for and a reminder that it's important to look at the impact we have across the whole and not only focus on some of the more uncomfortable or challenging spaces where trust maybe doesn't feel like it exists yet, but to explore the spaces where it does and what we might be able to pull from that.
Others, when you consider Tanya's topic, how is trust showing up? Trust with leadership. What's showing up for you in your own coaching?
I don't like to be silent, so I just want to jump in to break this silent moment. I think trust is very important. I think Tanya, she knew inside of her what the basic problem is, and what Betsy just gave to her the direction to trigger that out and to lead her to find the main problem. And in fact, I think herself, inside of Tanya's body, she knew the answer. But it's just something that.
Junlong, I'm going to ask you to, reframe, how is Tanya's topic, how is that showing up for you in your coaching?
Just to, and really contracting and designing with everyone. We shifted models on you here. We started with kind of what one-on-one coaching is. And in the interest of time, we shifted models to what is group supervision. And in group supervision, we want to make sure we want to make sure you're internalizing this. The assumption Erin and I make is that each of you inside went, oh crap, I've been there. and it queued up something for you. And what we want to focus on is what queued up for you. So Adrian, and then I see Silvana.
Yeah.
Oh crap, I've been there. So what showed up for me in my coaching when you said that was just a reminder of times where I've been in that situation and how distressing it felt. That I felt that there was groups and people that I could help, but I wasn't in a position where I could provide that help because of one or two other individuals in the organization. Part of the way that's affected how I've been working more recently is that's been kind of a key point in how I choose work. I am kind of only working with people who I think have that level of trust with me, and just not choosing not to embark on the trust building as the first step to actually doing the work. That's I think a reflection of the kind of work I enjoy doing more. So it's a personal well-being thing rather than is this going to have more or less impact thing. If that makes sense.
Silvana, I think you raised your hand, and then Frederick, we will come over to you. Okay, so Silvana.
Sure. Tanya, what's showing up for me, or how I'm resonating with the situation, is coaching the teams where things are going well. That's my comfort zone. That's, things are going fine. I know that. And working with people in leadership position who have different styles, different concerns, different worries. It's an invitation for me to better understand what is it that they are facing, right? What are their needs, and how? And it's probably outside of my comfort zone. Often it is, where I really need to, and perhaps even ask other people that they work with, of either how can I approach them better, or even how can I with them discuss how can I help their team? Maybe not how I can help them, but how can I help their team? And when is the right time? And even say things like, if we're waiting for them to not be busy, it's never going to happen. So when do we make time? And otherwise, like what Adrian suggested, if the wall continues to be there, maybe I'm not the right person there. But that's not what I'm suggesting you do. I'm suggesting what I'm suggesting to me in your position is look for ways to better relate and understand what that decision maker is facing.
Thank you. Frederick, you had your hand raised too.
Sure. So what came up for me when you were sharing your situation, in particular the interaction with the director, was quite in line with Silvana, where I found myself at times wanting to help more than people wanted to get the help or felt that they could act on the help. And moving from bringing change with to bringing change through people or from people were two phases that took time for me. And I can see myself going back to taking part of the ownership, and because I care. And it was funny because when you were sharing this situation, I could see myself having a walking conversation with someone. And what I found really good in a walking conversation is that we were aligned, we were side by side and moving pretty much at the same pace. Otherwise, it's hard to have a conversation. And it was a good way for me to let go at that time, and to a couple of times when I did that, I realized that the conversation had a life of its own. And in some of the conversation, we decided to go forward. And in some of the conversations, it became obvious that I shouldn't keep forcing. So it reminded me these moments that I don't have very often, because now we're so much online. That's it. Yeah. And thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It was very
Lenny,
courageous.
we're going to ask, sorry, Frederick, as I was clomping all over you, but Lenny, we're going to ask you to bottom line this last comment, and then we're going to come back to Tanya, and then we're going to wrap this to be on time. Okay. Lenny, you're on mute.
I will absolutely bottom line in this context. What's coming up for me is to build trust with a leader is to first build the trust that I am a leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So Tanya, let's bring this back to you. How has this influenced you?
It was an experience. It was kind of comforting to hear that more people have experienced the same. Mm-hmm. The comment that Kerry made about, also looking at the bigger picture. Yes, and also what Sylvan and Frederick said about wanting to help more than the system is ready for. That I'm also taking with me. And the last comment about also being a leader, less people pleasing and more leadership.
So you have time for us to ask about impact then too. What has been the impact of supervision here for you today?
It felt a lot I'm going to be very honest, it felt a lot like a coaching session. I mean, maybe this last part, it was different, but and in all transparency, maybe for the audience, can I say that, Erin is my coach. Yes. So it felt a lot like a coaching conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a lot.
There's a reason for that. You've had good coaches then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So everyone, we're going to wrap right here, just so we've got a little bit of time here. You caught a very brief glimpse into what group supervision could be. We were demonstrating that where you had a topic in the middle. There was asking, how did that impact, or what was, reflecting on, what comes up for you. Normally we would try to do a couple of rounds around that and give even more space. But today we just, obviously time and the like there. All right. So both are hugely, go ahead, Betsy.
Before we go on, one thing I want to unzip a little is about what was different from the supervisor perspective. Like if if I were to like, who is a VH1 fan with the pop-up video where they would like do the bubbles over the music video to tell you this is the moment where it's something uniquely supervision. There were a couple of pieces there. And one is most of my questions were, so what are you noticing? I didn't have a big range of questions. What are you noticing? What are you noticing in your body if you zoomed out? The nature of the questions were mostly just noticing what you notice and noticing that is one thing. I think the second thing is I didn't ask for an outcome for the day. That's for a topic, but not an outcome. And there was no action. There's no forwarding the action. And so I think like, and sometimes when you're coaching other coaches about their coaching, yes, that's going to feel like that. That means your coaching is very supervision-like. Not that supervision is very coach-like, but that's the lane of just giving you that space to be reflective. Sometimes there is no action and we're never going to forward to that. So I just want to like put those little droplets, those little pop-ups out there. And there were some other things too. But you're more likely, and you're not going to see that in a demo, especially when it's being recorded, but things about like, are you trying to be a hero here? What's going on with the hero victim complex and different things like that are other places where you can go in supervision. And there's some family dynamic frameworks that come into play too. So I'm going to stop now and leave where Erin wants to go with Q&A.
I was going to open it up to Q&A about the session as a whole. What questions are coming up for people that we can answer? And by the way, Tanya, you did fantastic. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, you raised your hand.
I have a quick question around kind of what you just mentioned. And so this is for both of you. And that is, I think what you were just saying is that you could potentially bring in suggestions. So is that another core difference in, like you brought in the hero, hero victim? Can you do more suggestions when you're in that supervision space? Or did I misunderstand you?
I don't know if I would use the word suggestions. It might go back to what Betsy was talking about, noticing. All right.
Okay.
All right. There might be, what parallels do you see between if you were bringing different topics? So you're seeing issues around trust with this particular individual. Where else are you noticing issues around trust?
Got it.
Where, transference, countertransference. All right. Where are you seeing bias? All right. What about judgment is showing up here? All right. Is that helping, Carrie? Yeah.
Absolutely. So still staying very neutral and thank you. Yes.
We have all sorts of things about neutrality and is it possible to be in neutrality and the like around that. But notice that frame, it's there for the person that is in the supervisee or Tanya's role to really dive deep and explore that. Thank you. Other questions? Adrian, how about you?
Just because this is possibly because it was the area that I think was least clear to me from your initial description, but with the formative, normative and restorative stuff, I saw lots of things in the conversation with Tanya. Thank you, Tanya. But kind of felt like it was in the formative and restorative space. I didn't perceive much in the normative space. Is that because I'm not understanding what normative is, or do they?
I can name where restorative and formative and normative lived in that conversation. So restorative, and Tanya, thank you so much for opening yourself up to this. Restorative really lived in, and if I'm projecting here, Tanya letting go of any, you didn't use the word shame, but any shame she might have been feeling, like she used the word fail, like she didn't want to fail with that team. And the restorative piece was breaking that up and feeling back into her strengths. And like what she noticed towards the end of the session was her relationships with all these other teams. And you might have noticed when she started very tense and as it went on, her shoulders started coming back. and there seemed to be more breath here than there was before. So that's where the restorative lived. I don't think that there was much in the way of formative, because I wasn't talking about any tools that she was using. I wasn't talking about any way that she was or wasn't holding the teams. There could have been a normative piece around the sponsor relationship. And because in the ethics that we all work through as team coaches, there are some specifics around how you have to hold the sponsor relative to the team, and that's usually in an ethical space. We didn't go there, and I didn't feel the need to go there. So it was predominantly in that restorative. And the question that cued you into that was, hey, take yourself 30, 50,000 feet above, give yourself permission to see outside yourself, and to see where the hurt is in there. And that was kind of the signal that we were really dealing in a lot of the restorative space. But I don't think we talked about any of the competencies of what she was doing in terms of the teams, what tools was she using, or anything like that.
So, and Adrian, when you started, how you defined supervision was around perspective. Okay. And you could see Betsy begin to kind of walk you through that perspective there. All right. So everyone, we need to wrap our portion of the show here so we can turn things over to Sath and to Dawn. If you are not connected with either Betsy or myself or both of us on LinkedIn, really, we would love to be connected with you. We either do a lot of speaking, we do a lot of demonstrating, but we're also just good people to know to ask questions of. We're always happy to help. So we'll drop our contact information over into LinkedIn here in a minute. Tanya, I really want to thank you for volunteering yourself into the middle. That was hugely brave, especially because we just kind of dropped you in and the like. But also I want to thank all of you who attended here today. This is, I know it's a new topic and seeing how it can affect your work. So really well done. And Sath and Dawn, look at that. It's over to you.
Good job. Thanks so much, Erin. Yeah, brilliant. Loved it. And yeah, as everybody said, thank you. Thank you to Betsy. Great to see from you both, hear from you both, learn a lot. And also another shout out for Tanya, who did a tremendous job and showed great courage to volunteer, to get involved and put herself forward for the showcase of the supervision. So yeah, thank you all three. And to everyone else who contributed. Got a couple of minutes left. So yeah, really great session. Just again, we have recorded it. We will share it. Tanya, just a couple of things just to double check with you. We'll do that offline. And also our next event, actually, just quickly in the interest of time, is actually next week. Just kind of rare. But because we've done a double header this month with this special edition with Erin and Betsy, our next session is at the beginning of June, and it's with Chris Stone. So I'm lucky enough to spend some time with Chris in London, Leonardo London last week. So he's a fantastic speaker. He's very passionate about retrospectives, and he's got a great session lined up. So do join us for that. Actually, I think that one might be full, but if you're keen to get on that, do get on the waiting list, and Donald and I will sort that out. Just another quick reminder, because we've plugged it a couple of times. I'm just going to get my links and things right here. That we've got the Scotland Hub, Agile 2023. It's in Orlando this year. But there is the Scotland Experience happening in June, in July even. But we also have a discount code to share as well. So what is it? Scotland Talk 23 hash, and that'll get you a $50 discount. And you'll see a lot of it online as well. So Vinny's on the call, so Vinny's done a great job of helping promote it. Donald and I are helping out as well. Seb, who some of you might know from the Scottish community, he's the chair and track lead for that. So we're all really excited about that. So there are still tickets available. Lisa's coming over, Lisa Atkins, to do the keynote. So if you'd like to meet Lisa, that's a tremendous opportunity to do so if you're in Scotland. So don't miss out on that. Get involved, and we're going to have a great time. So it's going to be brilliant. And again, we've added another event. So we've just added in our event for August, which is also courtesy of Erin, who introduced us to Will. So we've got that in the diary now. Got a great chat with Will. So Donald and I are really excited about that being part of our 2023 programme. And I think that's it. So just to say thanks again to Erin, thanks again to Betsy. Big shout out again for Tanya. Thank you all for your contribution and participation. I think we all learned a lot of good stuff today. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may happen to be. And we look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.